should be up to slide 50, slide 49 towards the bottom there. So hopefully you see that. And I think in many cases, for the most part, the 1, 3, and 5 year plan, sitting down and setting out a plan for analytics, I would say that I'm at great fault, as well on this one, because most companies that I work with tend to kind of call up more in the heat of the night and say that they need something done. As opposed to, kind of setting out a 3-5 year plan. But, I think given the focus on analytics these days and given the, amount of kind of need, for it in the industry, I think there is, taking that pause at this point in your audit planning for, let's say, 2016, and really thinking about where analytics could be used and trying to apply it more, setting up that plan is a great idea, and maybe something of kind of like a whole nother section. What I always said is if you could try to kind of get to that point where you're, using maybe 10 or 20% of your budget time in the year to analytics. And I know that sounds like a low number, but still, if you think about that would mean on every audit, you would be spending, if you had a 3-week audit, that, you would be spending a good 4 or so days devoted to analytics. And most audits don't have that, so I think just even getting to that point is key. I do find that, people say that they're just too busy. We're time bankrupt. We're kind of all there. So I think making that analytics a priority on every audit is key. I've said it before, but I'll just say it again. I have noticed at some companies, if the audit director walks down the hall and says, we really need to use analytics more, and may not even know what that means completely, but is kind of putting it out there that they want to get it into the audit plan for the year, it gets the staff thinking we better do this, because the person is asking for it. So I better start working on it. Another focus point, and I think this just kind of saves you time, is, and we'll talk about this more later on the data side of things, is getting past the curve of data collection and normalization. Getting your arms around the data can save you a lot of time. In almost all projects, like analytic projects, actually getting data is about 80% of the time, generally. So, if you think about it, we're not spending as much time on analytics as we should be. If you can move that to where you're spending 20% of the time getting data, and 80% of the time doing analytics, everyone's going to be happier about it. You're going to feel like you're getting a lot more out of it. So that's key. I'm starting now in the last, I would say 2 years now, working with some audit directors in helping to better risk assess their areas of focus. And, I would say that for the most part, when you look at the studies, just looking at that first bullet there, 48% of CAs are using analytics to scope decisions. 43% only are leveraging data to inform their risk assessment. So like almost 60% of people are not using analytics to help build the audit plan and kind of set up where they should be looking from a risk point of view. What I find is just taking a look at previous year audits. I like to do a scoring of, let's say if we're in accounts payable, I score the departments that are actually submitting the accounts payable. And if, from that point of view, what you can start to do is start figuring out who are those departments that are kind of, let's say, are being the worst of the bunch. And that can really drive your focus. Another one is travel and entertainment. A lot of people would say, well, travel and entertainment is small for our company. But in a way, it's almost like a psychological predictor. If we were to pick a predictor, the ACFE studies have shown that if you are kind of cheating on your T&E, there's a lot of other stuff that you're doing too. And if you can kind of find people that are, kind of bending the moral rules of the company, you tend to find that they bend rules elsewhere in the organization. They're the most likely. So, I find that, using analytics, kind of scoring departments this way can be a great way of kind of figuring out where are areas that we should be looking for. I think using the general ledger as a way of kind of looking for new areas within, from a detailed point of view of the general ledger is a great way as well, as of, kind of figuring out where there's some issues. So taking a look at the 2015 data analytics study, basically, did data analytics improve your audit plans? Sometimes, never. It is making up close to 72% of, or 76% of the population there. So, I find that the study that was done, per the PwC study was about 60%, leveraging it to inform, risk assessment. We're at more like 72% when we kind of look at the study of the AuditNet study that was done. And, and it's starting to kind of come in. I really found that, I keep going back to some of, going back 20 years and looking forward. But, back in the mid 90s, a lot of financial institutions that at the time were kind of taking advantage of data analytics, and were doing it more on a mainframe kind of level. Some people were also kind of getting involved. We really, as audit, were getting ahead of the curve. It was almost like we would, in many cases, we had the largest data warehouse of the company. I used to have procurement directors that would come to me and say, "Can we get some of those analytics because we can't get it out of IT, but you seem to be able to get it done." And we were able to kind of get ahead of a lot of departments. And as the studies have shown, it almost looks like from an internal audit point of view, and I think even maybe from an external audit point of view, that we're maybe falling behind, that as they're kind of moving forward technologically, financial operations, that audit may be kind of stalling a bit in using analytics. And here's a great example I found was the police systems, something called Predpol, and it basically is predictive police. And you can look them up at predpol.com. And, I doubt you could really use it at your company, but what it ends up doing is it actually calculates, I believe it's a 500-foot kind of area, and it'll actually calculate based on the time of day and the day where there should be crime next. And this came out of it was a great analysis that was done, and it just kind of led to all this decrease in burglary and robbery, and 56% increase in arrests, and it was all from better prediction using analytics. And it was actually built using earthquake type software. Or kind of, it was tested using kind of earthquake predictor type software. And what it was able to kind of figure out was that crime does strike in a lot of the same kind of time and place dimensions, but that you needed people to validate what was going on, that, technology isn't so much going to take over your job, but more or less is going to enhance what you're doing, is to make you more bionic, to use a word, which is biology and electronics, put together is why, we use the word bionic. And so in essence, it was a way of kind of predicting this box area based on variables, mainly place, time, and the type of crime that was being recorded. They kind of put this into a database, and over time they kept tracking it, and it was a way of then predicting looking forward. And I think a lot of ways, as internal audit, or, especially being kind of a keeper of this knowledge, that there is an opportunity for you to kind of track some of the past issues that took place, maybe when those issues took place, the departments they took place in, and be able to kind of reuse that again from a predictive point of view looking forward. So I, just kind of thinking about other predictions, other ways of risk assessing. I'm a big believer in saving money for companies, like finding cash, naming my company's Cash Recovery Partners for that reason, because I think it kind of sends a message to folks when you can find money. And be it a CFO, CEO, everybody likes money. So it's something where I normally would focus in on the general ledger file. We would actually either get the general ledger file or a subset of the general ledger, which was the accounts payable distribution. It's kind of, where did accounts payable go in the general ledger? And using those two files, what we were able to do is kind of take a look at certain general ledger accounts that were sole sourced. So you had one vendor, that was being, used in that particular area. Or basically they had too many vendors, and we were kind of becoming way less efficient from a purchasing point of view. Just looking at the top 100 vendors, I always found it interesting if you went to procurement or if you went to accounts payable and said, who are the top 10 vendors of our company? They would normally they would not get about 7 out of 10 of them right. They would, so from an analytic point of view, if you have the numbers in front of you, it helps you when doing audits of those vendors. It helps you when trying to understand where is our spend going. And again, if you're, from a risk assessment point of view, if you're kind of looking for money, this is a great way to kind of focus in and take just, maybe do like a risk assessment just from a cash savings point of view. So, I also wanted to kind of focus in on the audit itself, and just how do we kind of change things for the audit. I wrote an article for the Journal of Accountancy back in 1998, so it's close to 18 years now since I wrote that. It was called "Take My Manual Audit, Please," and it was something where even at the time, back in the mid 90s, there was a lot of focus on doing this type of work, and there was a lot of kind of thinking around taking our manual procedures and just replacing them with technology. I really feel like in 2016, data is everywhere. I mean, big data, I know it's a cliche to say the words big data, but I also feel like it is here. There are so many emails, Word documents, Excel documents, data files that we could be tapping into in any process. So it's almost impossible to say that you're unable to get data. I think you just need to brainstorm a little bit, and we are definitely not in the 90s anymore. I think thinking about how to replace manual tests, not so much supplement the manual test, but replace it with a technology test is key. I think the one thing that we'll kind of note here is that the first year can be a little rough when you do that, because you're going to find quite a bit potentially wrong in your data. So, but making the time for it, maybe focusing in on IT testing, because I find that the IT security testing tends to be a great area to use analytics. You might get, IT is generally more kind of open to technology being run within their department, coincidentally. So it's a good area to go. I will also, this was just in the Journal of Accountancy in 2016. So, going from 1998 to now, I think, just focusing in on reconciliations and building kind of dashboards that notify people of issues around reconciliations, I think that could be an area as well that you focus in on when you're looking at your audit steps. What you're going to want to do in running these reports, and what I do is I run reports. I run 50, 70 reports in a given process area, but we have to spend time reducing those false positives, because it's like a blood work. If you run blood work on somebody, the doctor has to talk to you about it and then understand what's going on in your day that's leading to this blood work. And sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's genetic. But you kind of have to do that in order to really figure out what is a false positive or a false negative. You may be saying, we have a blank report here, but we should have at least one problem, and we need to kind of take a look at that. I'm a big believer in trying to visualize things, and just, it helps you just to get a better understanding of your data. And I find that just by understanding the data, it might identify more of these opportunities for the false positive and negative detection. I liked this next slide here on kind of automating person power. This is from the Imitation Game movie, and it was actually wrong, but essentially they're saying it takes about 20 million years of us 10 people working, and it would take us that every 20 minutes to kind of break the Enigma machine. There was this Enigma coding machine, and it would take us 20 million years of us 10 people working, and in 20 minutes the code changer would change over again, and then it would take another 20 million years. And some mathematician online I was reading actually figured out it was even longer than that. It was like 10 times longer than the 20 million years. So it's amazing. Computers can really make much more efficient what we're doing. Other best practices to throw in there, and I've been talking about this one for a while, but this was a great set of a series. It's a series of videos that you could watch on the future of medicine, and it's I will not try. It's Atul Gawande, if I got his name right there, and it's a really great series done by the BBC. He's known as like the checklist king, and what he found was that, for the most part, a checklist is all that's needed. If we could kind of just put our audit steps to a checklist, and in his case, if you could just put some of the medical practitioner type work to a checklist, it would actually save a lot of lives. 2 million infections in the U.S. alone would be pretty much solved if people wash their hands a little bit better by using that checklist, and following kind of the infection type checklist around washing hands. And then there were, various other examples like this. So, kind of you learn like we learn from police that are predicting, where the next criminals are from a doctor's perspective. In a lot of ways, just using a checklist is a great idea. So, if there were more audit steps that had data analytics in them, and this is per the 2015 AuditNet survey, would you use audit software more? And 65% saying yes, we would use it a lot more if we knew where to use analytics. 16% saying I don't know, but this kind of gets to the AICPA and what they're about and what they're doing right now with their analytics framework. And essentially, the working group is currently exploring how to map the current audit objectives within audit standards to the realm of possible procedures that could be used with the standardized data that they have. And these are the data standards they have. Now, it's going to take them a little while. It's not something that's going to come out tomorrow, but it is something that's coming soon. And again, it's pretty uplifting to see that, because I think it's going to help that 65% of people to start using analytics more. In the meantime, there are a variety of data-enabled audit programs out on AuditNet, and many of you are AuditNet subscribers already. So this may not be new to you, but this is some of the information about AuditNet and the various subscriptions out there. And I would definitely take a look at that, because I think that's an area where there are quite a few that have been written by software vendors. I think there's more coming, and at some point I think it's going to get supported by the standards that are out there as well for external audit as well as internal audit. Another kind of question here, would you use data analytics more if there was a script library? So if you had little scripts that you can run in ACL and IDEA and Arbutus and all these other products, Teammate Analytics, the answer is yes. 63% said yes. Very, very much, similar to the last, survey or last survey that was done as well about the audit steps being written down for people. So, how do we get to that scripting? How do we kind of move to more of scripting things? I'm a big believer in prototyping things. I might even say build something in Excel or a simpler tool. Just kind of make sure it works first. Make sure you have kind of the logic down. In the IT world, this would be called being a business analyst, where you're a business person, but you're also using IT and trying to kind of set the requirements of what you need to do. Then you can build something more repetitive using the script coding tools that are out there and make sure that works. The first year is going to be rough. I used to work with somebody out in Austria that had automated all of their Sarbanes-Oxley testing for revenue. And, maybe I should repeat that. They automated all of their Sarbanes-Oxley testing for revenue. They were not picking 30-unit samples anymore. They weren't, for the most part, doing process documentation and all that. They actually had analytics that were driving the testing. And for the most part, the reports that were being run were blank because, they had done a lot of cleanup. So if they had pricing, let's say prices that are not on the contractual pricing list, most people would do a sample of that activity and find that, we have a price that is not on the list. In this case, we're doing 100% testing and finding that there was nothing on the list, that everything matched what was on the list. Now, in the first year, as I said before, there's a lot of cleanup, but in second, third, and onward years, it was nothing. So there was a lot of cost savings involved in automating SOX testing, and hence I think there is a value to scripting this work beyond just making your audit a little more efficient. You can actually make the business process owner's day a lot more efficient, and that goes back to kind of selling it as a business case. I think, probably therefore, focusing on friendly departments, maybe taking a look at IT again from a security point of view, testing, taking a look at the revenue department, people that are kind of tracking that, because they're the ones that get impacted the most, usually with Sarbanes-Oxley testing, and therefore they're the ones that are going to be more friendly to making their day a lot better. Having a results manager to kind of organize it and manage it can also be very useful as well.